What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn on the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. We're joined by a very, very special guest, one of the members of the 2010 Jets, Mike DeVito. What's up, guys? How you guys doing tonight?
What's up, brothers? Thanks for having me on. How we doing? Good?
Doing great.
Hanging in there, getting ready for the draft and Jets football. This is fun. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course.
Thank you so much for joining, Mike. We're obviously super excited. Before we came on live, obviously we were talking a little bit, reminiscent about your time with the Jets. So I just like to pick your brain, kind of starting on that. But talk about, you spent 2007 to 2012 with the Jets. You played for Eric Mangini, Rex Ryan, and then you went to Kansas City, played under Andy Reid. Can you kind of talk about the differences between those three guys and their coaching styles, and maybe if you see any of them in Robert Saleh from what you see watching the Jets now?
Yeah, I love this question. I was really lucky as a player to have that spectrum of coaches. So if you start sort of on one side with Mangini obviously is very much from that Belichick mold, right? So everything was sort of micromanaged. I mean, those guys knew how many grains of sand were on the mat as you entered into the Jets facility. I mean, it was just amazing the detail that he knew and that he expected us to know. And coming into the league, and I always think about this guys now with the rookies that come in, they have so little time to adjust. And it's so fast. I mean, it seems like they get in and right away it's the regular season. I never would have made it in this climate. I wasn't good enough coming out of college. But coming in, I was so blessed to come in under Eric Mangini because, as much as we complained about it, OTAs were 12-hour days for the rookies. I mean, we were there all day studying film, lifting weights, going out to practice, stuff you could never do now. 12-hour days. And then I remember our spring schedule went from April or May, whenever I got to New York, all the way to July 7th. And then we had to be back July 19th for training camp. And so it was and that was the rookie schedule. I mean, you had 13 days off or whatever it is, 12 days off before you had to come back. That was your summer. And so that was miserably hard. But boy, did you learn the game of football. I mean, I knew all the ins and outs, and that allowed me as a player who wasn't as talented, who didn't have the athletic ability and all the stuff these other guys had, to really pick up and learn the game. And I was able to get a massive edge because of that, and that carried me throughout my entire career. So you have, Eric the first 2 years, and then Rex comes in, and I remember it was like shell shock for me. I kept showing up when Rex first got there, and his staff would get there. That first off season when they were there, I would go into the coaches' offices, and I would just be like, "What do you guys need? What do you want? Do you want us watching film? Do you want us lifting weights?" And they were finally like, "Dude, you got to get out of here. Just get out of here. Leave us alone. Why are you here? I remember Patton being like, "Dude, I don't even know you. Stop hanging out around the offices. Stop asking us things. Just go home." It was a total opposite atmosphere. It was like, "Look, we don't care what you do. We're just going to win on Sunday. Just do whatever you got to do to win on Sunday, and we're going to have a hell of a lot of fun doing it." And those were probably, those years in New York, 2009, 2010, even 2011 for a while, they were just amazing. Absolutely. That was when football was the most fun in my entire life, winning those playoff games, just being a part of those playoff games. And to play with the guys that were on those teams. How lucky I was. I got to spend 2008 with Brett Favre, 2007 with Chad Pennington. And then you get to 2009, you got Sanchez, you got guys like Mangold, DeBrickashaw, Brandon Moore, Alan Faneca, right? LT's at running back, Thomas Jones, Braylon Edwards, Antonio Holmes. And then on defense, forget it. Chris Jenkins, like I said, Sean Ellis, Darrell Revis, Antonio Cromartie in their prime. Nobody's throwing anything. Bart Scott, Dave Harris. It was just Calvin Pace, Brian Tom. There were just so many amazing guys on that team. We had so much fun. And then when I got out to Kansas City, Andy Reid was very much in the middle of those two guys. So he let us, have fun, be professionals, but at the same time, he did have rules and structure and certain things that were very important to him. And you could tell as soon as you got there that Andy knew how to win. He had a systematic approach to everything that he did. And even the most outlandish things all had a reason, right? So one thing that Andy Reid did, he never let you put your helmet down on the ground. If you either had your helmet on or you were carrying it. And I remember thinking, that's such a crazy rule. Like, why can't we just let my helmet rest over here, you know? And I guess when he was out in Philly, he had some wide receiver run a route, went off the, caught the ball, went out of bounds, tripped over a guy's helmet and hurt himself. And so from that point forward, it was over. He's like, no more, everybody's carrying their helmets. And so it was just a number of things like that throughout all the years of experience that he had stacked up. And so it was very systematic. I mean, it just ran like a well-oiled machine. And so I was really lucky. I mean, I was really lucky to have those three coaches, especially as my career progressed, right? I mean, they were there at the perfect times for me. So I was very, very lucky. Again, I wouldn't have made it in the NFL now. I wouldn't.
Yeah, it's a completely different game from the era that you played in. And it's crazy because it's not even that long ago. I mean, you broke in, late 2000s, and it's just such a different game, especially with, defensive linemen are valued in a different way and used differently because it's so pass heavy and not run stuffing, which was something that you were great at. So I know we were talking about this before we went live, and I feel like everyone who's been, was a fan of that 2010 team would love to know a little bit more about Revis. But like, what was it like watching one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time, day in, day out, practice game? I know you were teasing it with us, but we definitely want to let everybody know what that was like,
Yeah, people, I usually get the question, who's the best player you've ever seen play, right? And I think people expect me to say Brady and Manning, and I think those guys deserve to be on top. But, everything that they've done, all the Super Bowls that they've won, all the stuff that Tom Brady's done, I have never seen anybody do on the field what Revis did. I remember going into the film rooms, and listen, I don't know a ton about playing cornerback, but you didn't have to, right? You would watch Revis. We would get done with the game. We'd go in and watch the game film, and you'd watch him cover Megatron, right? And Chad Johnson, a whole list of receivers, right? Randy Moss, all these guys. And it was like Revis was in the offensive huddle and then came out and ran the routes. I mean, he would run the route. I remember watching the Detroit game with Calvin, with Megatron, and Calvin would go to run his route, and Revis was just step for step. It was like it was in sync, like they had planned to do it. You know what I mean? I mean, it was just like, how in the world is he doing that? And he's in a back pedal. I've never seen anything like it. And one thing I took from Revis that I tell my kids when I go to speak to colleges and high schools, I tell, you couldn't tell Revis apart from the undrafted rookie free agent. I mean, here was a guy who was constantly watching film, constantly working out, cared about all the little things, where he was so talented. I wonder if he even needed to. I don't think it would have made that much of a difference, but he really, really was a pro. And so when you combine sort of that talent, that athletic ability, the smarts with that work ethic and that grit and that grind, that's when you get a first ballot Hall of Famer. And so I was really, really lucky to be on the field with him. I've never seen, of all the special guys, even after I've retired, and the guys that I got to play with, I got to play with some amazing players. Again, even with Brady and Manning in mind, I've never seen anybody do what Darrelle Revis did.
That's high praise. I mean, as Jet fans, we know exactly what you're saying, but like you saw it you saw everything behind the scenes, and it makes sense with what he was able to do and shut down a whole side of the field against some of the best, multiple Hall of Famers. It was crazy.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but listen, so you got Revis in his prime on one side. He's covering the number one. You got Cromartie in his prime. He's covering the number two. Do you know, we could blitz everybody. You could bring everybody. You talk about how we were run stopping, defensive linemen. Rex didn't even have us worried about doing one-on-one pass rush in practice. It was like, you guys don't need to, you're going to stop the run, and then we're going to blitz everybody, because we just could. You could shift the entire defense away from Revis and do whatever you wanted to do. And you knew number one and number two, Revis and Cromartie, are picked up. It was just the stuff that we got to do. I remember talking to other teams, and they'd be like, we just don't have enough guys to pick this up. I mean, it seemed like you guys have 15 people on the field. And so you combine, Revis and Cromartie with Rex's defensive mind and the way he could just do these simulated pressures where it would, these simulated pressures, I don't know. Simulated pressure is when you show like you're going to blitz to one side, but it ends up only being a 4-man rush, right? But Rex just did this in such a way. He would draw these things up in such a way that you only needed to bring 4, but 2 guys would come free because of the design of the defense. And so now you got all these people in coverage, Revis and Cromartie pinning people down, and then 2 blitzers coming free. I mean, it was really fun. And it was all predicated on the talent of Revis. I mean, it was just, the whole thing revolved around him, what he could do. And that allowed us to be so successful. And that was killer in 2012. I remember I would have taken anybody else to get hurt but Revis. I mean, that was when he went down, I was like, we're done. We're tough.
He was having a hell of a start to the season that year too, before he went down in that. I think it was a Miami game, but and then I do remember too in 2010, before the season, when he was holding out for a new contract, and Jets fans are all collectively freaking out about it, and so many questions about, does one player really make that much of a difference? And the answer then was yes. He absolutely does. To what you guys did on defense and shutting down a complete side of the field and taking away, and people don't do that anymore. So Mike, I think, it's awesome to hear you talk about this, because from 08 to 11, we all witnessed greatness. And I don't think there will ever be a guy like Revis again, specifically that 09 season and what he did. It was unbelievable.
Again, I think the only, I still think he's the greatest player I've ever seen. I know he is. I think the only position you would take above that is if you could get a Pat Mahomes or something. Obviously, a quarterback's going to win you those games. But outside of somebody like that, I'm taking Revis every time. If I'm building the team and you have a prospect that's like Revis, I'm all in on that. But I don't know if it can be done again. I mean, I don't know the history of the sport. Maybe Dion was like that. Maybe who was the safety for the Ravens?
Ed Reed.
Yeah, maybe he was in that bracket, but I don't know. I've never seen anything from 2007 on, I've never seen anybody replicate what Revis was able to do. And to the level, if you're talking that level of playing pro football at any position, I haven't seen anybody be able to replicate that. I mean, it was just superhuman at times, really. And it's not, I can't overstate it. I really can't overstate it. We could just put on the film from those years and you could watch. It was just absolutely jaw-dropping amazing.
And I'd say the one key difference between Revis and Dion, I think Dion was more dynamic. I mean, he had the flair to him and, punt return, kick return, that type thing. But the one astronomical difference is how good of a tackler Revis was versus Dion. I don't think Dion didn't like to tackle. He didn't like to get dirty. Revis had no problem doing it. No problem supporting the run game. No problem shooting up and blowing up a screen pass. I mean, it was incredible to see.
Yeah.
Mike, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to go on to another topic too. And I think, we talk about the current Jets team and Robert Saleh running the show. And that's the thing I'm most excited about, is because you bring up Revis and his grit and the toughness. That was what made those teams different than a lot of the other teams I've been on. And that was what made New York successful those years. All the talented guys, of course, but everybody was selfless. Everybody cared. It was really a selfless locker room. And two, boy, were they tough. If I was going to get a squad together to go get in a bar fight, I'm going back to that 2010 team. I mean, that's the crew I'm getting together. That team was tough. I mean, those are some bad, tough mother lovers in that room. And I think with Saleh, he seems to fit that mold. But everybody has seen, both GM wise and head coach wise, come in after Rex. It was like, that's not a New York guy. That's not a New York Jet. It takes a special type of person to run, to coach that team, to play quarterback for that team, to play on the New York Jets. It takes a special toughness. It's the Big Apple, right? I mean, it's built in the DNA of that city. And I just feel like we haven't had that. We keep bringing guys in that I think are good coaches, but it's just not a Jets coach. You're just not a Jets coach. I think, Robert Saleh fits that mold. And I think he's going to bring in guys that fit that mold. And so that's what gives me, with all the talent and all the stuff and the draft picks and all that stuff coming up, what gives me the most hope is the way Saleh carries himself, the way he goes about business. So case in point, one of the first things he said when he got hired, this blew me away. I don't know if I've ever heard a head coach say something like this. He said, I'm going to hire a bunch of assistant coaches that can make up for where I lack. He said, there's a lot of places that I'm weak at, that I make mistakes, and I need to have other coaches there who can cover for me, who can hold me up, who can hold me accountable. He's like, so I'm going to surround myself with great people because I know I'm going to miss some things. I was like, wow. You just don't see that kind of honest humility, especially from the head coach position. And then couple that with his toughness and the defensive background and the nastiness that he brings. I'm rambling on, but I think that's what gives me the most hope. I'm sorry.
No, you're making us feel good about where we're going.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we should.
I think it's great. And I think you're absolutely right. It's a level of self-awareness and the ability to self-reflect that I think we're definitely lacking in absolutely the previous regime. And you talk about surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you or that pick you up in areas where you may lack. I mean, that's what every good coach, good manager, good business person should do, right? I mean, that's what it is. You surround yourself with people that come from different backgrounds and different viewpoints that can lift you up. So collectively you guys are better. And I think there's no question that we were lacking that with Adam Gase at the helm, because he was the smartest guy in the room, no matter who was in there.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing. But so I want to actually kind of expand on that, Mike, if you don't mind. You were there 08, 09, and 2010. I think, the guys that you named off for the 2010 season, guys like LT, Jason Taylor, those were guys that came to the Jets because they wanted to win. And I think Rex kind of had that draw. Winning obviously helps, but the culture that you guys created had that. We've talked quite a bit now as Jets fans since that, over the last decade, the Jets GMs have to pay a Jets tax to get guys to come here. But do you kind of see Robert Saleh creating that to where guys will want to come play for him and for this Jets team because of that culture, because they are on the cusp of something bigger and better now? I know Carl Lawson said that's the main reason he wanted to come to the Jets was Robert Saleh. Do you see that kind of happening here?
Yeah. You know what? I wish I had a pulse of, when I was playing, obviously I knew what other guys were saying in other locker rooms, and everybody wanted to play for Rex. Everybody. I mean, it was just, I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, the guys just love him. Every team we played against after the game, guys would be coming up from the other team, hugging him. Everybody wanted to play for Rex. I don't have a pulse on the locker rooms now like I did then, of course, but when I look at Saleh, I would love to be in that locker room. So I'm assuming other guys are wired like I am. I mean, you could tell he's a guy that can put the business aspect of it aside and really love and care about his guys. There's some guys, some that you brought up, that you're like, this guy's clearly an organizational guy. This is an organizational guy. He could give a damn about the players. This is a guy that cares about himself first, second, and third, and everybody else after that. Those and the players know that. You don't see that from Saleh. I can tell from what I can see from the outside, it looks like he's a guy that really loves his guys. And as a player, when you have a guy at the helm who's that kind of leadership, and he cares about you, here's a guy that you'll say, hey, you know what? Maybe I would take a little bit less money to be a part of this team. I know guys did that with Rex. Or you know what? I'm gonna really put in the extra work because I know he is. I know this is a guy that will go to war for me, so I'm going to go to war for him. I mean, he just has that kind of he carries himself like that, and you see it as a player. And again, those are these intangible things. We can talk about the talented rosters, and of course, you need that to win in the NFL. But like I've seen firsthand, I'm sure you guys have. You could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have these sort of intangible things that are play a big factor behind the scenes in winning and losing, if you don't have that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter how much talent you had. Shoot, how many years did we watch Dallas? Dallas had like 22 Pro Bowls and they couldn't make it to the playoffs. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't. You need some of these other things, and Saleh has all those. It seems like he has all those intangible things. A great humble leader, at the same time gritty, nasty. And he's going to attract that kind of player. And so long story short, I do think this is a guy that guys want to play for. And that makes recruiting obviously a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the biggest, telling signs of really how the locker room felt about Saleh is last year, he actually had to miss a game because he had COVID, and he had Ron Middleton as the interim. They won the game. And after the game, there was a video that went out where basically they showed like the locker room, and then they put Saleh on the TV, and just like the way they reacted, it's just like they were so excited to get a win for their coach, even though he wasn't part of it. And it's just, it's different. And I think you've nailed a lot of great points about what we saw in year one. Obviously the wins didn't come, young team still trying to build, rookie quarterback. But I really think that what Saleh's trying to do, I think you're going to see like his overall vision of what he's trying to achieve as a head coach with this team, especially in doing with Joe Douglas. But obviously this draft is super important. They had a good free agency. They got some players to fill some holes that they needed, but they're not done yet because it's still a relatively young roster and they have to learn how to win. I'm sure that was something that you heard from your coaches being like, you guys have talent, but you got to learn how to win first. Cause it doesn't just happen. It's like, it's a process, and everyone hates hearing the P word, but it's, we need to see some major signs from this team because last year was the lumps and we're hoping to see the returns this year.
You know what's difficult, and it's also cliche, like you said, but it's true. Younger teams need to learn how to finish games. And I can't speak for all the games last year with the Jets, but it just seems like with younger teams, there is this sort of, I want to call it a barrier maybe, where, just teams that are less mature, might not have some of the older leadership that have been through the ups and downs in the NFL before. And it seems like, they start out fast, but then they have trouble finishing out games. And I think that's the key. And that was even the start of the 2009 season. I mean, we if you remember that season, we went 9-7 and we won the last two games, right? So, I mean, it wasn't always pretty to start, but it was the same thing, a young team, young coaching staff. And it was about getting that rhythm and finishing games. Finishing games is so important. And that's, again, I think that's more of a mental thing. And so how Saleh sets up, this was something Andy Reid did really well, but how he sets up training camp, I think is going to play into that, because finishing games is much a mental thing as it is a physical thing. And Andy Reid had these great training camps where he would, do live periods. He would do these long drive drills, all this stuff to work conditioning. It wasn't so, we would get in and get out, but there were certain drills to teach you how to play when you were exhausted. And I think those went a long way in helping us finish out those games when you're in the fourth quarter and you're just gassed. So I think, stuff like that is important. Again, that's a kind of a tangential point, but yeah, that's right. And as we're going on year, what's this? So this is what, Zach's second year?
Yeah.
What you guys tell me, how do Jets fans feel about it? Because I feel like I hear differing opinions about Zach. What are your guys' thoughts on him? I'm just curious. I know I'm the one being interviewed here, but
Steven, you go first.
I think you're right. I think the consensus on Zach is all there. There is no consensus on Zach. It's all over the board. Yeah. I think a lot of us, if you look as objectively as possible, you can say that year one wasn't good. Right. Yeah. But there were promising signs down the stretch. Now, he didn't light the world on fire, but in the last 6 games, he threw 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, I think, and certainly did that while the entire offense was basically hurt. So It's encouraging. Started to use his legs more. I think got a better feel for the LaFleur system. I think, would we have liked to see a little better signs coming out of Zach Wilson in his first year? Yeah. But I think it's encouraging. And I think going into year 2, especially if they can surround him with talent, you got the, young receiver Elijah Moore with a year under his belt, Braxton Berrios coming back. They hopefully add a receiver here coming up, whether it's through the draft or maybe they get Debo, who knows? We're all going nuts about that. If they can add some talent around him, I think that, hopefully year 2 is where he takes off. But it was, I think you're absolutely right, Mike. It was kind of across the board if you ask Jets fans. A lot of us are all in believers. Some of us are still on the fence, but I think there's encouraging signs there. Steven?
I think, listen, like Steven said, I think, it was ebbs and flows. There were some highs, then there were some really bad lows, like the New England game when his home opener. I mean, you just got to see more because it was incomplete. He missed a few games because he hurt his leg and it just was like frustrating and everything. But when you saw the flashes, you could see why they fell in love with him and he was their guy at number 2. Like, he has the NFL arm. It's like he has one of the more lively arms we've ever seen, in the last 25 years to play for the Jets. Like, it's definitely there. I think he just needs to figure out a little bit more on the fundamentals because he was missing a lot of the short throws, which would frustrate fans, like screen passes and these quick outs. But then over time, when he came back from injury, you saw him improve on some of the things that he was struggling with as a rookie. And listen, I know you saw Mark Sanchez. He had a lot of ups and downs as a rookie. Like, he had some really good games. And then there was a game against Buffalo. I think he threw 5 interceptions. That was one of the most brutal games. And you guys still had a chance to win that game. I'll never forget that one. So it's learning the NFL. I think Zach has the talent. I think he just needs to keep putting in the work. And it seems like this offseason he's traveled to, practice with all of his receivers, I know he had a receivers thing out west. So I think he's doing all the right things. It's just a matter if he could put it all together. And I think that they're definitely going to add some more talent around him in this draft. So I feel good about it, but cautiously optimistic because, he's still got a lot to prove.
Well, that's the key point. It was when I look at him, I do think of Sanchez. And when you think of, think of the offense that Mark came in, and the defense that Mark came in with, right? I mean, that offensive line was Mangold, Faneca, DeBrickashaw, B. Moore, and Wood, right? You have Thomas Jones behind you. You have Dustin Keller. You have Braylon Edwards. I mean, did Zach have anything close to that last year?
No. I mean, Vera Tucker and George Fent were like the most like consistent guys. I guess Morgan Moses filled in nice, but then the rest of it, Becton obviously was out. The interior was not great with McGovern and also Van Routen, and then eventually LDT came in and it got a little bit better. But yeah, it's night and day, and they're trying to build that offensive line. We're hoping we get to that level.
Got to start there. You got to start there. You got to protect them. I mean, that was the thing that helped Sanchez out so much. Is that offensive line in 2009. I had not played against an offensive line that good. Training camp was absolute hell because those guys were incredible together. They just Sanchez was fine, man. He had nothing to worry about, and you still saw, like you said, even as a rookie, he had those mistakes. And so I like Zach, and I feel like I see a little bit of Sanchez in him too. I think he probably has a better arm than Mark did.
Definitely,
no. Yeah, but he has some toughness. Like he has that. Seems like he has that that makeup to be a good quarterback. Not obviously the talented stuff, but I said playing New York is hard. Playing quarterback in New York is very hard, right? You have two bad series, and Jets fans are booing you off the field. I mean, it's not a place that is for the weak-minded. And he seems like you talked about the 6-1 down the stretch. Like, seems like he's got some thick skin, and that goes a long way in New York. So I like they brought in the guard there. I'm terrible with names.
Laken Tomlinson.
Yeah, he's a good player. I love Becton. I know I don't know how Jet fans feel about Becton, but I think when he's back and healthy, he's a massive train in there. So they're building up that offensive line. They have some prospects that I think. Are we still on for Debo? I mean
we're hoping.
Yeah, I think you got to do whatever it takes to get him. And now I get that the draft has some good receivers, really good receivers. I heard Mike Tannenbaum talking about one of them, I think it was the receiver from Alabama being the closest thing to Tyreek Hill that he's seen.
Jameson Williams. But he's going to miss half the year, which is like, it's kind of frustrating. You're taking a guy in the top 10, you want him out there, and he may not come back until like the late October, but long term, you're hoping. But yeah, the Jets are just in a tough spot with taking a guy who's not going to contribute, from the first week. But before, I know you got to run soon, but we wanted to just see, since, our former defensive lineman, the Jets have a huge needed edge. It's really been an outstanding need forever at this point. Is there any of the guys, because I don't think Aiden Hutchinson will be available, but a guy like Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon, and also Trayvon Walker, any of those guys that you've seen? I'm assuming you've probably seen most of Hutchinson because obviously he was in the playoff and everything. Any of those guys really stand out to you that you like the best?
Yeah, Thibodeau looks like a really good player. I mean, he looks like he's got some grits and that. Like he looks like a Jets type guy. Everything I see from the analysts and things like that, talking about how these guys are pretty, nothing's a sure thing, right? But we were talking about this, I think, before we hopped on. I like going with edge guys, linemen in those early picks because, and I don't know what the stats are, but they seem to be more of a sure thing in the long run, right? So if you're going to pick that guy, somebody that high, I always like going with the lineman, either an offensive, defensive lineman, outside guy. And the grades on this, I mean, this might be one of the best edge classes in a while, right? I mean, these guys just like across the board, really good. So I like the young man from Oregon. I think he looks like he can fit the mold to complement Lawson. But I don't think I don't think any of those guys you can go wrong. I love taking an edge player at that, at 10. I think that's I think that's a good pick, and it fits like the perfect puzzle piece right in there. What I do think again is important is when you have 3 or 4 guys that are in that same skill set, talent level. Now you start looking at the intangible stuff, right? It's like, okay, well, all these guys sort of talent wise warrant this pick. Who fits, what it means to be a Jet the best? Like who has that Jet makeup, that guy that we're looking for? And that's the beauty of this is if you have 3 or 4 guys that are similar, now you can pick the guy that really fits the locker room best. And so if I'm New York and I'm looking at getting one of those edge guys, that's probably my number one factor. And I don't know those guys, what they're like in the locker room, but obviously those coaches do. And so that I would put a premium on that, given how close they are in skill set. Is okay, who's going to bring leadership right away, and who fits sort of the chemistry of the locker room? Because you can have a guy that has all the talent in the world, but you bring him into a locker room where he doesn't really fit in, and it's not going to matter as much.
I love it.
Well,
I love it.
yeah.
Hey, Mike, excuse me. One last question before I know you have to run, but we had Thomas Jones on the show actually right before the start of last season. He was your teammate from 07 to 09, I think. But so I asked him this, excluding 2010. But Mike, if you had to pick either a healthy 2008 team, a 2009 team, or a 2010 team to go win one game for you, what squad are you taking with you?
That's a good question. So let me give you a quick Thomas Jones story before we go.
Yes, I love
this is always a funny one. I don't know if I've told this one before, but I remember this was Mangini, so it was 2008. Jones was there in 2008, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was. So I don't know if we were having fumble issues or something, but I was on the scout team, and Mangini came up to us. We were going against the number 1 offense, and he said, "Listen, strip at that ball." I don't know if the team we were going to play was stripping at the ball, if we were having fumble issues. But he said, when the back comes through, make sure you pull on that football. So I said, okay, we'll do it. Defensive line, we'll do it. So I remember, Thomas Jones came through, and I went and grabbed the football and went to pull it. And he turned around and he punched me. So we didn't have pads on. We had shells on. We had like the spiders on. He punched me so hard, square in the chest. And I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He was like, wham, just crushed me. I was like, I'll take getting yelled at from Mangini. I'm not getting punched by TJ again. But that just speaks to, again, the leadership and toughness. I mean, those guys were tough. If I had to pick one team, it'd be the 2010 team. Yeah, I remember the beginning of that year, OTAs, we were working our pass rush groups, and the number 1 dime defensive line was Jason Taylor, Chris Jenkins, Sean Ellis, and Calvin Pace. I was just like, who's going to block that? How are you going to block that? How are you going to block those guys? I mean, Chris Jenkins could take 2 guys, 2 guys by himself. He was, and then you got JT and Calvin on the edge, and Sean freed up as on a 3 technique on a guard. If a healthy 2010 squad with Jenkins in that mix, that's a bad group right there.
Yeah, that team, probably my favorite team ever. It's not even close, really. But Mike, we really appreciate you coming on, man. We'll definitely have to have you back, especially in season. We want you to, keep a closer eye this year and see how Zach's doing with us. But we appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Guys, thank you so much for having me on. It's been great. Sorry I had to miss the first time, but yes, this season definitely have me back. I would love to come on and we'll talk as the season goes on. But I appreciate you guys. Good luck with everything, and let's hope we get somebody good in this draft. All right.
Yes. Thanks very much.
We're hoping for that. Let's go.
Appreciate it, brothers. See you guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
Take care. Yeah, that was fun. DeVito had some good stories. That Reva stuff, that TJ story, that was awesome. But I know we didn't touch as much on the draft with him, and I know we want to do a little more nostalgia, but we definitely got to move into it because it's here. All the smoke is coming on, Steven. It's nerve-wracking because we have the guys that we want, and then we're hearing that they're tied to other guys. So it's tough. So what's your overall pulse right now? Obviously today, we're hearing that Jermaine Johnson is favored over Kayvon Thibodeau. And I think you and I both agree we'd rather have KT in that scenario. What are you thinking? How you feeling? I'm nervous.
I mean, it's smoke season, right? This is when it starts happening. And, the days leading up to the draft, it's going to get crazier and crazier. So I'm not going to buy too much in. I will say that the KT versus Jermaine Johnson thing at number 4 doesn't bother me as much. While I prefer KT, I still think that Jermaine Johnson would be an okay pick for me. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't be super upset there at 4. I do think you could probably grab him at 10, but that's where I really want receiver. I think you and I see eye to eye on that one. I think the one pick that would probably 1 or 2, I wouldn't really like them to take Sauce at 4 if Trayvon Walker slips, which I just don't like that boomer bust type pick at number 4. So if Trayvon Walker slips, that would be, and the Jets grab him, that would be the one that would make me probably the most upset, just because I really don't see it. And I hate banking on traits and not production. But I think right now with the smoke being, around JJ, I'd still be okay with that. If they go KT or JJ or Icky, I'm really fine with any of those 3 guys at 4.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, it's like, I really want KT. I think the upside is really just tremendous with him. I know there's obviously a lot of questions about, does he love football? Does he take plays off? But Connor obviously is, someone I trust his opinion about players. I think that he definitely has a good track record evaluating these guys. Have been doing professionally for years. And he's been always all in on KT, even thinks he's better than Hutch, which I feel like we got to this point because Hutch obviously had an amazing year. Michigan had a great year. So it seems like KT kind of fell under the radar, but I'm just like, man, you watch that guy. He's just explosive. And I did watch him a couple of times, last year at Oregon. I just feel like if he's there, you got to take him. I understand, obviously the Ekwonu stuff. And let me just be clear with this, because I'm sure people who are big fans of taking Icky, may take this way. I like him. I think he is a great pick. It's just if you do that, you got to get rid of Becton. And I'm not saying that I'm out on Becton or anything, but that's really what you would have to do. And you never know. He could be with a guy that we saw as a rookie when he was out there. And it's frustrating. And I know that he's in year 3 and he has to prove himself, but it's we need an edge rusher. And listen, if that's what they do, I can get behind it, because I know Ekwonu is one of arguably the top prospect in the draft. It's not that great of a draft because no quarterbacks on top, but I really need the edge there. But I want to transition to 10, because obviously 10 is really a big deal, because if we were to get involved with Debo, which we could talk about after this, it could definitely change really what they're trying to do if they don't include that pick. But in a perfect scenario, you have your pick of the litter of all the wide receivers at 10. Who's the guy you're going with, and why?
I'm going with Garrett Wilson because I think he's the safest bet. And I just, maybe it's just my mentality, but I like a higher floor as opposed to a higher ceiling. I know that I wouldn't be, and I'll preface this by saying I wouldn't be upset if they went Drake London or even Jameson Williams. I see the draw there, especially with Jameson Williams, because of what he can bring to the table. But the fact that I'm a long-suffering Jets fan and I want immediate results, that I don't want to say that, but at the same time, it does impact my decision. I just think Garrett Wilson and what he brings with his smooth route running ability to, even though he's not the tallest guy, ability to go up and get jump balls, win contested catches. I think that does complement what they have really well. You can also see that same argument with Drake London. I mean, getting a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", typical small forward, power forward, however you want to say it, to be able to go up and get and win those contested catches as well. What he excels at is definitely a compliment to the Jets receiving core. But I just, Garrett Wilson coming out and talking about Olave and how fast he was, but Wilson comes out and runs a 4.38 or whatever it was. I like that. I think he's the safest bet of the wide receivers. I would like to see that if they do go wide receiver at 10, if they somehow, don't get Debo. What are your thoughts there though?
Yeah, it's funny. And we talked about this a month ago. We did our, free agency show, and I've kind of switched my tune. I was very much in agreement with you on Garrett Wilson. And don't get me wrong, if they take him, I'm happy with it. I'm fine with it. But I think I've kind of been swayed towards Drake London. I get it, the USC thing. People are like, we can't take USC players. They never work out for us. But for me, I like what he can bring to this offense that it doesn't have. Corey Davis is a big body, but he doesn't play the way a guy like Drake London plays. Drake London gets comparisons to a guy like Mike Evans. He gets Cortland Sutton, I know, is what Connor's tossed out. We just need that kind of guy who can complement the speed and elusiveness of Elijah Moore in the red zone, who could just throw up, just some fades and just give him those jump balls that Mike Evans is one of my favorite players in the league. If we can get a guy who could even be somewhat close to Mike Evans, it could change the dynamic of this offense. And the thing about Drake London is he can complement Zach's game so well, because Zach loves to throw it down the field for receivers to go up and go get it. Corey, unfortunately, was not really that guy. And I'm not out on Corey. I think he could bounce back, especially, I mean, he made that amazing play against with the Titans, but I've kind of just transitioned to Drake London. It's kind of been like over the last like 2-3 weeks. If they took Jameson Williams, I could get behind it. The issue, obviously, I have, which we just talked about with Mike, is he's not going to probably return until, mid-October, which, is what it is. And if he has the upside that a lot of valuers say that if like he wasn't hurt, he's wide receiver 1, there's no debate about this. But I mean, really any of those 3 at 10 is good. I mean, I like Olave if they were to trade back. I mean, also could really be sold on Traylon Burks also if they trade back, but I think those 3 are fine. I know you were talking about Sauce before, like depending on the scenario, like let's just say they do get Debo, which we can move into. I'm fine, actually, believe it or not, with them taking a secondary guy if they got edge at 4, if they don't trade away 10. Yeah. I would prefer Sauce. I mean, I could get behind Kyle Hamilton, not really what I really want, but like I can sell myself on it. If you're telling me we have Debo Samuel and obviously those 2 second rounders, and then I think a 5th rounder, I'm fine with it. But like ultimately, it's like one of those 3 receivers, preferably KT. And if they do a Quando, it is what it is. But then I'm just really worried about the edge because you're really trying to hope that somebody slips with maybe a borderline first round talent into the 2nd round. And I don't want to take chances. I need the talent here. We need this team to improve, and I want to win games. Just like you said, we've been Jets fans. It's been freaking brutal. We need to win some games. I want to see results. I want to see guys who contribute immediately, like AVT, Elijah, and Zach.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if they trade for Debo, anything they do at 4 and then they keep 10, anything they do at 4 and 10, I'll be happy with. Like if they take an edge at 4, whoever it is, whether it's KT or JJ, I'm fine with it. Even if they take Icky and somehow Jermaine Johnson slips to 10 and they go Icky and Jermaine, I'm okay with that. They take Sauce at 10, I'm good with that if they get Debo. If they don't get Debo and they wait until round 2 to get a receiver, I'm going to be upset with that. I don't think you can play that kind of roulette with receiver again with a young quarterback. I think you have to get one of the top guys. You can't go and say, it's Jahan Dotson or the Watson kids from North Dakota State or anyone like that. Like you have to get a top guy. I'll be okay if it's Jameson Williams, Drake London, or Garrett Wilson at 10. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. But what are your thoughts about Debo? So obviously I know you want him, but where's the limit? Like, what are you not willing to give up? It seems like they're reportedly asking for 2 first rounders. I would say no to that. Like, as much as I like Debo and want him on this team, that's just too rich based on what you've seen from the market. Like, you get Devonta Adams for a 1st and a 2nd. You get Tyreek Hill for, I guess, what was it, like a late 1st and a couple other picks. There's just no way I'm doing that. Like, Debo is great. Obviously, I love him on this team, but he does have injury history. And, I'm not mortgaging our 1st round pick because who knows how good we'll be. Like, good teams are willing to do that because they're like, oh yeah, it's basically a 2nd round pick because the end of the 1st. Where's the cutoff point? What's like the ideal package for you?
Ideal package for me is I would package 35 and 38 to get Debo. I would also give number 10 for Debo. I'm seeing, seeing it the same way as you are. I wouldn't package 2 first round picks for him. I think Debo's a great player. There's no question, but I think there is a world where what we saw in 2021 is the pinnacle of what he's going to be. I mean, that was a phenomenal year. I don't know if he could ever reproduce what he did that year. I'm a little, none of us know the story, right? But I'm a little skeptical as to why he wants out of San Francisco so bad. Everyone's just playing, we're throwing darts trying to figure out why it is. I don't really get it. Maybe they lowballed him on an offer. Maybe he's really tired of being used that way. I don't know, but what receiver doesn't want to get the ball more? Have you ever heard of that? Like in any way, shape, or form, they all want the ball. They want the ball more than they're getting it. So that's beside the point. Either way, I'm with you. I wouldn't give up more than 2 or more than 1 first. I'd be fine giving number 10 straight up for Debo. I think if the Jets drafted Debo at number 10, every Jets fan would be completely happy with that. I'd be fine giving up 35 and 38 because if you still get picks 4 and 10 and you get Debo, we're all happy. I mean, I think the Jets have done a nice job this offseason in positioning themselves. I mean, this is why you have capital. The argument about whether the Jets are 1 player away, it doesn't matter. That's not what I agree.
It's insane to keep putting that way.
In order to get 1 player away, you need to continue to add talent. You can't shy away and hope it just magically happens so you can ultimately get to that point to be 1 player away. So if the price is fair, and we know Joe Douglas is very good at this and putting a price on a guy, knowing where the market's kind of shifting and where it's going to fall, I would absolutely make a move to go get Debo for either number 10 or 35 and 38. I don't know if it's even been discussed, but I'm not sure if I would go, 10 and one of those 2 second rounders. I think it's either one or the other.
I would do 10 in a third rounder. I would do that.
I'd do that too. I just wouldn't give up 10 and 35 or 10 and 38.
People were saying that if they were to give up 10, they probably actually would get a third rounder back from San Francisco. That, yeah, sign me up. I'm fine with that. You recoup at least a little bit of capital and you're still getting a huge position of need. So let's play the game just like assuming they don't get Debo, they take an edge and they take a receiver or whatever. Or let's just say hypothetically they do take a Kwanu. Like one of those it's basically those three scenarios between 4 and 10. What are you looking to get in the second round? Because obviously with 2 second round picks, especially, with a lot of guys like potentially a Nakobe Dean falling to the second round or a Linderbaum falling to the second round, what would be your ideal scenario? I feel like those two, if you could get them at 35, 38 would be the dream scenario. But like, let's just say that's not going to happen. Like, who are some guys that you'd be interested in? Because there's going to be a lot of talented players that go in the second round. There always is. And it's crucial if we could hit on those because you got 4 picks in the first, 62. So who would be guys that you'd be interested in getting?
I'm not Connor Rogers or Mel Kiper or Tom.
Yeah.
But I'll go position. So if they go edge, wide receiver at 4 and 10, at 35 and 38, I'd like them to go safety, corner, linebacker if one of those guys drops. And there's been some smoke around Linderbaum, and if he could push out of the first round, then I would absolutely be all over that. And even tackle depth. I think we've all talked about the Jets staff loves George Fant, but after this year they're going to have to extend him. So to get some depth there, especially insurance from Mekhi Becton if Icky's not the pick at 4. So that's where I would look, and I think that's where the needs are. I think the nice thing about this is, and what's kind of come to light over the course of the last few months is, every Jets fan, we were all about, Jeremy Ruckert and Trey McBride, but I think you're starting to see those guys kind of fall down because, they're not probably top 50 or top 60 picks or, even really second round guys, but they were kind of being elevated just because of lack of tight end depth. But now that the Jets went out and got Uzama and got Conklin, that's not really a need for us in the second round. So it expands what the Jets can actually do. So I'd be very interested to see them go, one of the top safeties, corner, tackle depth. And if Linderbaum falls, that's a good one too. And if, I know the guy from Georgia there, the linebacker, Nakobe Dean, right? If he falls, get a good running mate and a potential, replacement for Mosley. So that's what I'd be looking at. What about you?
No, it's all good things. I mean, like I actually put this in my latest mock that I posted about getting Breece Hall. He's probably the top running back in this class. He's really good. I feel like, second round is really where you would take a running back. I understand the argument because we do have Michael Carter already that you're like, why would you take a running back? And he brought back Tevin Coleman. My thing is, liked what Coleman brought. He's getting a little bit older. He got hurt last year. He's been injury prone. You still need another guy. I mean, you're not, I would assume that P. Ryan's going to be cut, in camp or, cut day or whatever. You have Austin Walter, who was a nice, little plug and play guy when they had some injuries, but you really need another guy because to me, as much as I love Michael Carter, he's more of a 1B than a 1A, and he should be splitting time. His body's not big enough, in my opinion, to be a guy that's going to be 3 downs and doing everything for you. He's great. He's elusive, but he's also had injury history. You need to have someone to pair him with. So that way, when he does play, he's able to be as productive as possible because he's not having lingering injuries. So him or a guy like Kenneth Walker from Michigan State would be great. I think safety also is a great position of need. I mean, if Linderbaum's there, you got to do it because we're all just ready to just change the entire interior. And it is what it is at this point. But I definitely think that, a guy like, Dax Hill, if he falls out of the first round, Lewis Cine from Georgia, even Brisker from Penn State, like any of those guys, I would sign up for. I think they're all really talented players. And just because the safety position's been so devalued, as like we've talked about with the discourse around Hamilton, you should definitely try to get one of those guys. They're probably a first round talent, but because people don't value safety as much, that's why they slip. So totally with that. I mean, last time the Jets took a safety in the second round, it was Marcus May. It ended up being a pretty good Jet. So I could get behind it. Corner, I'm also about as well, but I just think there's a huge drop off once you get out of the first round. But if they get a guy like Kyler Gordon or Kara Elam, those guys I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the scenarios that Joe and Connor have talked about is potentially if Stingley falls, which I don't think he will. I think that his stocks actually boosted back up. If he falls a little bit, I'd be interested in potentially trading back up into the first round to get him because with those 2 second round picks, you have the flexibility to actually move back in if there's a guy that's fallen that you really want. So I'll be interested to see what Joe Douglas does, but at the same time, you got to get that receiver, you got to get edge. And if you don't really walk out of night 1 with that, I'll be a little disappointed, but I'll be like, all right, let's see what else you can do.
Yeah. I mean, if the Jets end up making all 4 of those picks in the first 2 days of the draft, I mean, realistically, they should walk out with 4 contributors day one. Like
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. And this is a huge draft. I mean, you said it before, we were talking to Mike DeVito. This is a team that it's a very young team, but they're looking to take that next step. I mean, this is why you get draft capital. You need contributors coming out of this. So, and to be honest with you, Steven, I agree on your point on running back. I mean, how many 3-down running backs are there left in the NFL? Those days are gone. And how many of those guys have ever played in the Shanahan system? None of them, right? All Shanahan systems are complementary pieces that, they have guys that can do different things. So I think, Michael Carter is not going to be that guy. He doesn't need to be that guy. So getting a running mate for him, I think is a huge need for this team. And you could probably, if Breece Hall drops, I could see them doing that, but you could probably do that day 3 of the draft. I do think that getting someone that you can pair with CJ Mosley is probably a priority for this team. I know they love CJ. I know they love what he brings. I know they love his leadership. However, CJ, as great as he was, did have an up and down year last year. I think you can attribute a lot of that to the defensive line play. So hopefully another year for every one of these guys in that solid system that helps out a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think CJ's already 30, going to be 31. That wears. Those tread on the tires are, they're wearing down. So you need someone to be able to be his running mate and ultimately fill that gap once they they part ways with him.
I mean, listen, he was great, but you don't think he's going to really hold up that much longer. Is I guess the way he was playing before he got hurt last year. You have to just think about having someone long-term who could be his successor and really be the middle of that defense, 5 years from now. So if they took someone in the second round, like a guy like Nakobe Dean, I'm like all for it. Or maybe even a guy like Quay Walker. I'm definitely interested in these guys. It's just, I think it's all about how the board falls. I don't think that we ever thought that Elijah Moore would be there in the second round last year. I've heard he'd be like a top 15 pick this year just because of what the difference is in skill and, evaluation. So, I mean, obviously you got to fill positions need, like you have to get some secondary help. I mean, obviously we like the young corners, but none of them are like proven commodities that, you can just let them out there and they're going to be fine. So I think that they'll address it. It's just a matter of, I think, how the board's going in the fall. But, it's going to be interesting, with the Jets, 2 first-round picks in the top 10, 2 second-round picks. The first few days, we're going to be quite busy. I'm super excited. But are you nervous about Trayvon Walker specifically? Or is there anybody else in the top 10? I know Trevor Penning was another one that we've talked about, but I don't think
honestly, I trust in Joe Douglas. I guess I really do. The Trevor Penning thing, it doesn't make sense. There's no way. And those guys had, the coaching staff had an up close and personal look at him during the Senior Bowl. I don't think there's any way that he's going in the top 10. I mean, if that happened, I wouldn't be happy about it. But other than Trayvon Walker, I don't really think there's anybody at 4 they could take that would really, really, obviously if it's something like, that nobody's talked about at all, I'd be shocked, but Trayvon Walker be the one. I don't like going based on trades. Even, Stingley at 4 would be another one. I'm fine if he drops and they trade back, into the first round or something to get him. Yeah, but that banking on traits as opposed to actual visual production, I'm never a fan of that. I want to see both. I want to see a guy that has the potential and a high floor or a high ceiling to continue to progress, but also produce something during his college years. So that's just where I'm at. The Trayvon Walker one really pissed me off, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know this comparison's been used, but it's like that Family Guy thing with the boat and the mystery box. You want the proven commodity. You don't want to roll the dice and hope that it's a boat, but yeah, I agree. I'd rather guys who have proven track records. I understand sometimes you're going to play the upside game. I know that was Becton. I know that was Zach, but Joe Douglas is in such a critical position where he needs to get guys that he knows that week 1 in September, these guys are going to be on the field. They're going to be contributors, going to be legit players. May not be superstars immediately, but they're going to be able to be NFL starters like from day one. Yeah. And I think that's the mindset he's going to have. And, you never know. I mean, listen, he's surprised us before, but who knows? They could have Debo in 2 days. They could have somebody else that we just not unexpected that's available. You just never know. The NFL has been crazy this offseason. So I'm excited, but I'm really nervous because I'm like, I really want Kayvon Thibodeau. He's the guy. If it's Jermaine Johnson, I'm not upset because I think that he can be a really good player, but obviously if they're passing on KT to take him, that will sting, especially if KT goes on to be like a Pro Bowl edge, then we're just like, oh, there's another one that we just let slip right through our arms.
I know. And it's more difficult this year because there's so much uncertainty with those top 3 picks. When you have a draft where the quarterback class isn't as strong like this year's is, it's just it's dart throws. So we have no idea what's going on. The rumors out of Jacksonville are the owner wants one guy, the coach wants another guy, the GM wants a third guy. So it's really a crapshoot at this point. So seeing how those first 3 picks break is going to be extremely exciting. And then whatever the Jets do at 4, man, we'll see. And I'm sure either way, whether it's with happiness or complete confusion, Jets Twitter's going to explode. So it'll be fun.
The most undefeated thing about the Jets is Jets Twitter. You never lose. There's always something you're going to find that's going to make you laugh. And I appreciate everybody who interacts with us because it's always a lot of fun and entertaining, especially when it's down times. Any closing thoughts as we get closer and closer to this draft? I am so nervous, but any closing thoughts here?
No, man. I mean, this is the time we live for. I think the Jets had a strong offseason. I really do. I think what they did in free agency was smart. They filled holes, they filled needs. I think it was good what they did. I think getting guys like Tomlinson, like Conklin, like Uzama, DJ Reed and Jordan Whitehead. I think all those guys are solid players and improvements over last year and day one contributors that are going to be difference makers. And I think, we talked about it with Mike DeVito. You get Saleh being as self-reflective as he is, as self-aware. I think he admittedly said there were things about being a head coach that he wasn't aware of that he had to adjust to in season. Like he didn't know, controlling his schedule and stuff like that. So all those things and being able to learn from that and adjust and course correct for year 2, and then building the foundation they are with the luxury of having 4 picks in the first 38. It's exciting, man. I think I trust I trust the process. I can't say that without laughing, but I do. I think it's going to be a home run. And I think if they somehow can get Devo out of this, with some of the packages we were talking about, man, it'll be awesome. But what are your thoughts as we close out 3 days away here?
Same thing, really. I mean, I'm excited. I know they're going to bring in some guys. They're going to, hopefully be long-term contributors to this team and get us excited, especially in September. But, we'll just see how it shakes out. It's every year, especially this year, it's always fun with the draft. And I feel like because there's no quarterbacks and nobody really knows what's going to go on at the top, like you said, it's going to be interesting. And you just never know, like, what if the Jets trade up or they trade back? And then it changes everything that we thought that they're going to do. And it just throws us in a whole new wrench. And I'm interested. It's going to be fun. And I'm sure, there'll be plenty of discourse. There'll be plenty of happiness, sadness, all in between. But no, it's never a dull moment as a Jets fan. And we just appreciate everybody who comes along the ride with us. We have a lot of content coming out this week from the Turn on Jets Badlands community. You got this show that'll be on the podcast feed whenever you guys are listening to it. Will has some podcasts coming out. We have the draft season guys with that. I know we have another Badlands. I think there will be a special Badlands to react to night 1 picks. I may or not be part of that. But it's always going to be fun. There'll be some articles and reactions, and we appreciate everybody who's tuned in and listens. Make sure you subscribe to our channel at Turn on the Jets on YouTube. Make sure you go to our site for all of your written content. Subscribe to this feed on Apple, Spotify, or Google Play. And obviously Badlands, get that Holy Grail draft guide that Connor just put out. It's amazing. It gets you everything you need to know. Badlands on Patreon. And obviously TapRM, to get $50 off your first order of $100 or more with promo code Jets50. And